Kaplan. Jeff Kaplan exposes the ugly truth behind why he left Activision Blizzard and Overwatch. So I saw a piece of this. Like I did see a piece of it momentarily. So, but it was a very interesting. It was like a 5-hour. It's like a 5-hour thing. In general, like the whole entire interview. But it's very interesting to hear like the actual part. So why he left. It was definitely a good conversation.
On April 20th, 2021, it was announced that Overwatch game director and co-creator Jeff Kaplan would be leaving Blizzard. And this was news that shocked the world. It just kind of came out of the blue, and it just seemed like Jeff Kaplan really loved working at Blizzard and working on Overwatch, and it just felt like he would never leave. Many people felt like there must be a reason behind this departure, but we wouldn't find out until recently. Yesterday, a video would release, a podcast episode where Jeff Kaplan would speak out.
Yeah, that was one of the things that popped up most of the time, is because they wanted to become like Fortnite because of the money.
About what happened at Activision Blizzard that finally made him go, I've had enough. I've got to get out of here. This all comes in conjunction with the announcement of his new game, The Legend of California. This is his new game development studio, Sugiyama. And this
he's the one that's making this game. Right.
Basically a Western cowboy-focused survival game. Ark meets Red Dead Redemption 2. It's kind of the vibes I'm getting from here. So yeah, that's basically what Jeff Kaplan has been up to since he left Activision Blizzard. He basically went radio silent since his departure back in 2021. It's basically been 5 years since we have heard from him. And not only did he announce a new game, but also he chatted with Lex Fridman on his podcast. That's like 5 hours long, this episode, to discuss all aspects of Activision Blizzard from his perspective. And among the things that Jeff Kaplan was asked was why he left Activision Blizzard, what instigated that. Right here we have a transcription of Jeff Kaplan's response via news outlet Video Games Chronicle, and the headline already kind of tells you where this is going.
The biggest FU moment in my career. Former Overwatch director Jeff Kaplan reveals why he left Blizzard. An ultimatum over redundancies was what broke him, he says.
Jeff Kaplan straight up said that the thing that made him leave Activision Blizzard was the biggest fuck you moment in my career. And so here is kind of some of the ugly truths he shared in terms of what happened behind the scenes that ultimately led to Jeff Kaplan deciding that he is out. The breaking point for Jeff Kaplan was a meeting that he had with then Blizzard CFO. This was after the Overwatch League endeavors didn't prove to be successful. The expectations surrounding the Overwatch League were placed too high by executives, and that ultimately led to its downfall. And when signs indicated that the Overwatch League wasn't meeting those sky-high expectations, pressure came upon the Overwatch 2 team to try to make up for it in other ways. And at one point, then CFO Dennis Durkin, who was with Activision Blizzard from 2019 to May of 2021, this CFO departed 1 month after Jeff Kaplan's own departure. This executive would bring Jeff Kaplan into his office and basically make him an ultimatum and a threat. Here's how Jeff Kaplan put it in his own words. Quote, in 2016 and 2017, I felt very in control of the Overwatch team and of the game as a game director, working with Ray Gresco as the production director. It felt like we were running Overwatch and we were very, very successful and doing a good job, and I think the fans were happy. And then, as we transitioned, Overwatch League was the best intention. My parents always say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That was the Overwatch League, and it ended up being an albatross, and then Overwatch 2 was the same thing, referring to how all this focus on the Overwatch League detracted from the development of Overwatch 2 and the ability to just focus on fleshing out the actual game. He continues, and what ultimately broke...
So basically the what is it, the whole esports thing? Is that basically is what it is?
Me in my Blizzard career was I got called into the CFO's office, and he sits me down and he says, he gives me a date, which at the time was 2020 and was going to slip to 2021, but at the time it was 2020, and he said, Overwatch has to make this amount of money in 2020, and then every year after that, it needs a recurring revenue of this amount of money All of that information was redacted because Jeff Kaplan, I think, is still under contractual obligations to not disclose such figures. And then he, the CFO, says to me, if it doesn't do this amount of money, we're going to lay off 1,000 people, and that's going to be on you. Like, that's just straight up extortion. The CFO told Jeff Kaplan, give us this much amount of money for our corporate interests, or we will give you the most cruel task possible, which is to lay off 1,000 of the people that you have been working with. 1,000 of the people that have become basically family to this game development environment and this game studio. And we will make you the bad guy. You'll be the one who will have to lay off the 1,000 people. It's gonna be on you. So you better give us that money by the.
So it's the guys in the business suit. Yes, but they wanted it to be a Super Bowl. Wait. You're telling me that they wanted Overwatch, a hero shooter game, to be in the same level as the Super Bowl? As in, like, people watching and paying money to go see this thing? Jesus Christ. I know you should put your expectations high, but they didn't say go to the stratosphere with expectations. What? That's so stupid. What? I know esports is pretty big, but it's not that big to be considered as, like, going to chase the Super Bowl type of thing.
This time, it's full-on extortion. Jeff Kaplan then continues with this sentiment that I don't blame him for, and that was just the biggest fuck you moment I had in my career. It felt surreal to be in that condition. As somebody who's worked on a lot of games, made a lot of games, you get in these meetings where they're like, Fortnite has 1,400 people working on it. If you just hire 1,400 people and make it free to play, we'll make that money, right? If we just...
That's not how it works.
Imitate Fortnite's game development model, then Overwatch can do the same thing.
So this is the reason why there's, like, number one, why it's over budget for a lot of these games, right? Because you got to pay for all these developers on top of that. Interesting. I'm wondering if that's the issue, and that's why there's people getting laid off or so, because they crazy. I believe that's when a lot of people were investing in esports, but as we know now, esports does not make that much cash.
And it's like, no, idiots, that's not how that works. Executives. Jeff Kaplan continues, I had believed I would never work any place but Blizzard. I loved it. It was a part of who I was, and I felt I was a part of it. And I literally thought I would retire from the place. And by retire, he means that he thought he would work at Blizzard until he was physically incapable of doing his job and fulfilling his duties. He said, I never thought the day would come. If it was up to him, if it wasn't for this kind of bullshit, he would have stayed with Activision.
It is true. COVID was the one that, like, made them brought in, like, a bunch of developers and everything like that, because everyone was staying indoors, and the up in cost of, like, games and PC hardware and everything went up because of it. So they thought, you know, because they probably thought that the COVID was going to last for a long time or so, they were going to fucking, you know,
Blizzard forever. He would still be spearheading Overwatch, and that was something that he never wanted to leave until the CFO came at him like this, with this kind of extortive tactic. And that was it, says Jeff Kaplan.
There was a time of Dota, CS, LOL's esports period where they peaked and everyone want those bags.
And I was like, we're done here. Luckily for Blizzard, that CFO is no longer there. He doesn't actually go out of his way to name the CFO, but we know for a fact that Dennis Durkin was CFO of Activision Blizzard from 2019 to May of 2021. So, shocker, huh? That it was executives' decision that led Overwatch astray and that led to the departure of arguably Overwatch's most important figure, Jeff Kaplan. Now, prior to him talking about this meeting with the then CFO of Activision Blizzard that made him go, I'm out, he also talked about what went wrong with the Overwatch League and how all of that ultimately led to that pivotal moment with that meeting with the CFO that led to his departure, talking about how Overwatch League was something that Jeff Kaplan did believe in, something that he helped pitch, but then the people in charge of the Overwatch League just got overzealous and started to overhype it to investors, to the point where investors were basically made to believe that the Overwatch League was going to be as popular, if not more popular, than the NFL. And
So they were fed lies too, thinking that, you know, that this shit was gonna be super popular. I wonder who was the person that decided to tell them that, actually, to the investors.
Suddenly, you've got all these billionaires starting to invest in the Overwatch League, and the pressure and the stakes surrounding the Overwatch League got much higher than what was originally anticipated, and so focus had to be pulled away from Overwatch 2 because they had to make Overwatch League work at the level that they dreamed of and fantasized about to please the investors who were overhyped about the potential of the Overwatch League. And so a lot of focus and resources were pulled away from, you know, the actual development of Overwatch 2 and its content, and focus was instead placed on things like integration with Twitch, camera control, and that kind of stuff. The other part of it was a bunch of skins, uniforms for all the teams, which was not just getting the art in the game, but there was huge technical challenges to how all that worked and was efficient and hit the right memory footprint and all that kind of stuff. So it was a pain in the ass to implement these.
Especially NFL. And like, you're trying to compete against NFL, you're crazy.
Features that were meant specifically to reinforce the Overwatch League. And all of this came at the sacrifice of the game itself, Overwatch 2. Jeff Kaplan straight up said, you're not really even focused on Overwatch 2 anymore, you're just kind of treading water. While Jeff Kaplan was on board with the concept of the Overwatch League, he didn't like the way it was being executed. He would start to hear from people who were worried that the Overwatch League would not meet the expectations of investors who invested so much freaking money into this, believing in the overhyped Overwatch League that would be more popular than the NFL or whatever. And so Jeff Kaplan apparently was like, just give them some of the money back and set the Overwatch League expectations appropriately, instead of trying to meet a level of investor hype that was just not possible. The way Jeff Kaplan put it was that it was a great idea, that the wrong instincts, I don't know how to phrase this in a way that's not damning, but there was too much focus on let's make lots of money really fast, and a lot of people got dragged into it.
Yeah, it's always the guys in the business suits that want this specific type of mentality. That's why we've been getting so much fucking live service slop. Yeah, the moment they went crazy on the esports is when OG Overwatch
that right there
died.
is basically the bane of gaming, when people in positions of power in gaming have this mentality of let's make lots of money really fast.
It almost feels like, it sounds like it's like these people are not in the video game scene. They just kind of like join the video game scene for the money because they see like the crazy boom of how popular video games are. Which video games like kind of like generate a good revenue, and they're kind of like the highest, what is it? They're kind of like one of the highest growing industries or so for entertainment purposes.
Rather than let's nurture something so that in the long term, it can make us lots of money and it can be in a healthy position. Suddenly there was all this pressure for the Overwatch League to make boatloads of money. And so Overwatch League almost became a higher priority than Overwatch 2, than the actual game that the league is based off of, which is an insane thing for me. And of course, it had a negative effect on Overwatch 2, with Jeff Kaplan explaining that now we didn't just have executives at Activision Blizzard who cared about the bottom line of Overwatch. We had all these people who basically invested in the game, and then they started to express their opinions.
So they had a bunch of, so they had a bunch of different random people or so? Basically the billionaires or the millionaires. Man, I would totally love to interview one of these people who like invest money in these kinds of things, you know? Just to have a conversation with them, you know? Just out of curiosity.
Opinions. Eventually, executives started to see that the Overwatch League was not going to reach the unreasonable bars that the executives set for this endeavor. And so as Jeff Kaplan put it here, everybody defaulted back to, hey, didn't Overwatch make like $500 million just in the live game last year? What can we sell? What can you give us? That pressure comes onto the team. And then the pressure to ship Overwatch 2 and all the care and love that we had for the live game and the live service, let's just make events and new heroes and new maps. We're losing all these resources. And this is always the thing that happens. Executives' decisions fail. It falls onto the team to make up for leadership failure. And then that pressure leads to the team not being able to do their job of like making the best game possible. This segment concludes with Jeff Kaplan kind of ominously and vaguely hinting at what Overwatch 2 could have been versus what actually shipped.
Wait, so you're saying we could have initially had the PvE part and the quote-unquote story thing or so and all this other stuff initially? Is that the reason? I wonder if this is also the reason why they also actually canceled the PvE part too.
In quote, I believed in Overwatch 2. I think we would have made a great. I have a lot of hindsight of how I would have designed that game differently with what I know now versus what ultimately we didn't ship. Overwatch 2 is out now, but it's not the Overwatch 2 we planned and announced.
Oh, what? So it wasn't originally the Overwatch 2 that we planned and announced. That's interesting.
There's no denying that Overwatch 2 had a lot of rough tidings. It's in a much better place now with Overwatch 2 even having dropped the number 2 because it never earned it in the first place. But I feel like Jeff Kaplan's insight into some of the behind-the-scenes goings-on hint at some of the reasons at why Overwatch 2 did feel so bare bones, didn't feel like a problem.
Wait, so where did this conversation to start the league started from then? You know, who started this conversation? Is it the higher-ups that started this conversation that wanted to turn Overwatch into, you know, into a league type of thing, or was it the? I doubt it's the dev team, but
full-fledged sequel. This feels like a little bit of a peephole into like what went wrong with Overwatch 2 before it finally found its ground in more recent times. But yeah, I mean, you can tell how much Blizzard and Overwatch meant to Jeff Kaplan, judging by this quote right here that Kotaku relayed from that podcast, where he said, separating from Blizzard was one of the most painful things. And I was very sad when I resigned, and I didn't realize how broken I was until recently, like the mourning, grieving I'd gone through. So what it all ultimately bogs down to is another story of executives ruining something good. And while I know there's more complexities to all this than meets the eye, I'm sure there is a truth that lies somewhere in the middle between Jeff Kaplan's side of things and other sides.
Oh, so that's how it was.
Ultimately, it does seem like a lot of like dumb executive decisions and mandates and interferences completely compromise the long-term potential of Overwatch 2 and just the Overwatch IP as a whole. This focus on Overwatch League because of the investors involved and the need to appeal to those investors instead of like focusing on the product that makes things like Overwatch League possible. Overwatch League doesn't matter if Overwatch 2 itself isn't good and at the peak of its potential. And it's just that level of short-sighted thinking that makes me go, how the hell do these executives get the jobs that they do? How the hell do these executives keep failing upward?
The reason why they get the job is because they did successful in a different field. That's where my estimate guess is at. Is that they excelled in a different field that's not part of video games. It's basically of like earning money or so in a shorter period of time. But the problem is that specific, I just don't think it works in the video game industry at all. It's always the higher ups. That's why I'm very specific when I'm never saying devs, because in my opinion, it's a lazy and surface level. They need to put on. Yeah, but then at the you want to know something from? I don't think he talks about it in the interview specifically. Well, not as in like this video. My bad. But in the interview, I saw a piece of the segment or so where literally. Where there were I think it was like, what DLC was it or so for the, I think it was like, it's from World of Warcraft, right? It's either the Lich King one or the Burning Crusade one that they were referencing or so, where literally like, apparently the dev people were like putting like buildings together, like the tall buildings or so. And then they were kind of like measuring or so to like which building is the tallest, because they asked the dev team, you know, just make a big building or so. As big as you can for this specific thing, right? And apparently they had a couple of the dev people huddled up like around in like some place or so, put all the tall buildings together, and they were kind of like seeing which building were the tallest, so then, you know, so they can compare it. And then literally, you know, Jeff is like, what are you guys doing? And it's like, oh, we're trying to see like which building is the tallest or so in the game. And he's like, brother, I don't even think this guy even knows what is fucking tall in the game. Just make the building big, okay? So at the same time, we still got some pretty stupid people who are behind the dev team. And let me remind you this too as well. I have some friends who work behind, you know, in actual you know, game development. There are some developers that are in there that literally make it worse for other people, okay? So that's why I'm always like, I'm a little bit 50-50 when it comes to the situation in general. After learning that, they've told me the people that they have to work with are some of the most insufferable people you will be working with at the end of the day. So they have this specific mentality or so where they talk about apparently they talk about a bunch of politics stuff and everything while they're like, you know, behind the scenes working on these video games and everything like that. And it's just kind of like, okay, all right. That's why I'm a little bit like, it's a little bit of like 50-50, you know, it's a bit 50-50 here. Where like, yeah, of course the higher ups are the ones who like, you know, cause the biggest problems or so when it comes to that. But then apparently there are some devs or so that makes it harder for everyone else than it needs to be.
But yeah, there you have it, folks. This was just some really interesting insight from Jeff Kaplan himself, who we hadn't heard from for like 5 years. It's cool to see that he's moving on to his next venture with The Legend of California. And yeah, I mean, the fact that he came out of hiding swinging and basically exposing some of these like ugly truths of behind the scenes goings-ons within Activision Blizzard, especially on an executive level, goes to highlight that he probably still has a lot of hurt when he thinks back to what happened at Blizzard, given his love and fondness for Blizzard and Overwatch and just being a part of that company that basically gave him the middle finger. I'm very curious to hear from you what you think about Jeff Kaplan's statements and what he accounted when it comes to what happened behind the scenes in the comments below. And
it's interesting, but it's not the entire thing, right? It's not the entire thing specifically with the Jeff Kaplan thing. There was a piece of it. Hold on, let me see if I can find it for you guys.
Believe in it. You know, I helped pitch it along with some other people. We thought it was like the future of esports and doing regional-based teams, ensuring minimum player salaries and player protections. Like there was a lot of very good about Overwatch League. I want to see
if it talks
and there'll be
about
teams
it
associated
here.
with particular cities.
Yes.
And it'll be international, it'll be real competition. So the dream, the ambition was really huge there.
Yeah, the teams part of the dream was more of like regional based, player protection, try to make esports more of a first class citizen. Because there were all these stories about like shady teams, you know, screwing their players over. Where it got away from us was there was a lot of excitement about Overwatch League, like too much so, and then it got over marketed to the people buying the teams. They went on this road show where they had a deck basically, and like you can put anything in a deck and sell anything, and they were pretty much selling the Brooklyn Bridge that Overwatch League was going to be more popular than the NFL. Mm-hmm. And we got a bunch of billionaire in let's make lots of money really fast.
Yeah.
So let's just make events and new heroes and new maps. We're losing all these resources.
Yeah.
And it got to the point, you know, my exit at Blizzard, I believed in Overwatch too. I think we could have made a great game. I have a lot of hindsight of like how I would have designed that game differently in 2020. And then every year after that, it needs a recurring revenue. And then he says to me, if it doesn't do...
have to have weirdos at the helm. And the degree to which you don't have weirdos at the helm, creative minds at the helm, and you're a business person at the helm, get out of their way, right? You cannot have the meetings like you're describing. And I don't just speak about this particular company. It's just the entire industry. There's so much joy to be had if we keep creating great games. And I just hope we get to see those great games.
Who make stuff. We're so focused on the love of the craft.
In my opinion, the workplace, you are always going to get jackasses in the group, but I am I blame the work culture, for example. Look at the high guard. Everyone, they were smelling their own farts that could not handle criticism. But if there's someone in disagreed, it's just the problem is, right? It's the whole like safe space kind of type of thing, right? They were like, you had to like tiptoe around people that you had to work with. And you had to be careful and everything what you say around them specifically, and you can't really be like, be like yourself.
We get lost
basically.
in it, and we love doing it.
Like, as in, like, you can't like.
And we're not cutthroat. And
yeah,
we don't have that kind of ambition. We have a different kind of ambition.
Cutthroat.
But there's this whole world, especially as soon as you're lucky enough to have success, that are very cutthroat and very ambitious. And for whatever reason, we keep giving ourselves to ourselves. World of Warcraft, when we made it, there was no CFO at Blizzard. You don't need a CFO to make World of Warcraft. You need artists, engineers, designers, producers, and an audio team.
You don't need to bring in, just because you're making a lot of money, it doesn't mean you need to now start adulting by bringing in a CFO. You can figure it out.
And there are great finance guys. Like, I've worked with finance guys who get it and get out of the way and respect, and they're gamers and they sort of understand. But like, I wish developers would understand their own value more and stop handing the golden goose to people who don't deserve it.
How painful was it to say goodbye?
It broke me. I love Blizzard to this day, where you're like, I wish that hadn't happened. But on the whole, that place is mecca for game development. And they provided for me and my family, made me the person I am.
To see if he explains it here
separating from Blizzard, I resigned. And I didn't realize how broken I was until recently. I think I'm a little fucked in the head for not being there anymore. It was really, really painful leaving.
Can we just speak to, I don't know, I don't think we can give enough love to Blizzard. It's a legendary company. It is some of the greatest games ever. It is such a legendary game company, just looking back at the whole of it.
The start is Mike, Alan, and Frank. It was run by 3 gamers. They were all 3 of them programmers. They made the games before they just ran the company. So they knew what each of us as developers beneath them were going through, and they protected us. They shielded us from all of the nonsense. And even when they would align with a business person, they had
it's probably the
a COO in the early days named Paul Sams. And Paul protected us. They found great people who got it. The company, when I joined, was like 95% developers and like 5% operations. When I left, it was, 50-50, and that's like a 4,500 person company. That love of the games and the respect and good treatment for game developers really turned it into the place that it was. Just the commitment to excellence, the high quality bar, and then finding these passionate people, visionaries of early Blizzard, Alan Adham, of just these worlds that we're still making and we're still playing in today. It was infectious and it was inspirational, and you wore the Blizzard blue with an esprit de corps. Like, you felt proud to be part of it, and you felt like you had made it to be there. And everything you did wanting to respect and honor those who had come before you. I know it sounds almost cheesy, especially you didn't take it for granted.
Yeah, that's the sense. Reading everything, that's the sense I got. Everybody that was a part of it, that truly, truly, truly honored that time. Just to take a small slice, what were some of the brain? So you mentioned Chris Metzen. You gave so much love to so many people. What were the brainstorming sessions with him like? It seems like those are pretty.
I think this is the part of the subject. I think
like awesome.
They were the best. Like, you could walk into a room. Like the way I would work with Chris is early on when I was more junior, it was just sort of getting creative direction from him. Hey, Chris, I'm about to work on this zone called Westfall. What are your ideas? You know, how could I capture them in gameplay? Well, that won't quite work. How about like this? It was more like that. Later on, like I still remember the first discussion I ever had with Chris about Wrath of the Lich King. I went up to his office, like, hey, we're finally doing it. We're doing the Northrend expansion. You know, what excites you about Northrend? And that's all you had to say. And he would draw a map and he'd start pulling up old like Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 1 manuals and, you know, showing you like pictures he and Sammy had drawn and like maps and he, all of it. He would just go on for an hour and then I would sort of digest. I just listen, taking constant notes. I'm photographing his whiteboards all the time. And then I go back and start to put those into design flow of like, okay, what's a zone? What's a dungeon? What could be cool? What should come first? What should come last? You know, Lich King, for example, we wanted to try a very specific design to counter a problem we had in Burning Crusade, which is everybody entered through the Dark Portal, through Hellfire Peninsula. All the server programmers hate you because everybody loads into the same zone at the same time. Lich King, we split them up for better player flow. Plus, it's more interesting. The more choice you have, you know, Sid Meier says games are a series of interesting choices. So we give him 2 starting zones, but that was the flow with Chris. And so often we would just like, okay, in that first meeting, Chris had put a zone called Grizzly Hills on the board. Well, I don't know anything about Grizzly Hills. Mm-hmm. Hey, Chris, talk about Grizzly Hills. If you didn't interrupt him, he'd just go for an hour and you have no idea how much of it like he had pre-thought about or had existed in previous lore and how much of it he was just making up on the spot. Mm-hmm. He's just that charismatic and captivating.
Creating these worlds and being able to brainstorm through them and together. I mean, that is what you're doing. As a consumer of those worlds, you kind of take it for granted that they're incredible, but like you're crafting them. Like you're looking at a blank sheet of paper and then together coming up.
My job, as I saw it working with Chris, was I had to, on World of Warcraft specifically working with Chris, is I was like the translator into gameplay of what Chris wanted, how to get it to play like how Chris wanted. So my favorite stories were working on Burning Crusade, and we're in this meeting, and Chris is like, he's the gentlest, sweetest guy, but because he carries himself with such confidence and everybody's in awe of him, the junior developers get kind of intimidated by him. So we're in this meeting and we're talking about Silver Moon City because we're introducing the Blood Elves. And Chris is like, in Silver Moon City, it's got the tallest fucking tower in all of Azeroth. I mean, it is the tallest thing. You know, it's mind-blowing, the awe of it. Only the Blood Elves could build it. Fast forward like 2 weeks later, I'm walking through the hall and I see a bunch of level designers and artists. They're all like crowded around the screen. And on the screen, here
it is. This is basically the same mentality or so of like how people were like, so when my friend told me of how certain people work behind the scenes or so, there's some stories I can't say, of course, but like the one specific story reminded me of one of my friends, of how some of these people are behind the scenes when they work on these games, at least as of now, in today's day and age. Not back then or so. Back then was a little bit different, but now in today's day and age, I'm just kind of like, huh. Now that's very interesting to hear that, actually.
We've dragged Blackrock Mountain and Karazhan and the Stormwind Cathedral. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And they're like, well, Chris said that the Silver Moon Tower had to be the tallest thing in World of Warcraft. Mm-hmm. And so we're measuring how tall all of these other things are so we can make the tower taller. And I'm like, guys, Chris doesn't know how tall the burning steps, and the cathedral in Stormwind is. What Chris means is just make the tower really fucking tall. You don't need to measure it. And they're like, oh, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, are you willing to take the heat? I'm like, I'm willing to take the heat on this one, guys.
Yeah.
You see that? So that's basically what I was looking at or so. So that's why there are certain people in the gaming industry who are developers or so have a very lukewarm IQ. I'm gonna be honest with you. There are some very interesting no, because it's a waste of time, Quotable. It's a waste of fucking time, bro. That's a waste of game development time. You don't need to drag the assets over into one specific place just to find out. It's like, oh, we can do that? We can actually do that? It's like, yes, of course you could do that. It's a waste of time. It's like, just because, it's just like, bro, just make it as big, bro. Just make it big. It's not fucking rocket science. They're literally making it as rocket science. You guys are making a video game. That's why I'm saying specifically that I'm like, quality means time. Yo mama means time. Shut the fuck up. But yeah, that's what I'm saying specifically. To be fair, they are rookies. Brother, this is in today's day and age. Okay? If I was a fucking art designer or something like that, I'm not gonna go fucking drag a fucking building or whatever and put them all together just to make it, just because my head boss says it's gonna be big. It's gotta be big or so, I was like, okay, all right, I gotta measure how many fucking pixels there are on this fucking goddamn building, Well, that tower wasn't the tallest building. I have no fucking idea. I to be honest, for me personally, it's like, why are we trying to measure the fucking pixels and the density or so of these buildings to making the big tower? That's what I'm saying. Like, it's a waste of time. They're all huddling around a monitor. A bunch of people are huddling around one single monitor, putting the buildings next to each other to make the fucking building tall. It's like how many people does it take to screw in a light bulb? It's like that kind of situation. Like, how many people does it take to find out how tall of a building is in a goddamn video game? It's like, what are we doing here? What if the boss said it's got to be taller than the last expansion? You just make it tall. You just stretch it like in Photoshop. That's what I'm saying. So I'm like, there are a lot of questionable people behind the scenes when it comes to certain developers, of course, So I will measure that building. If it wasn't the tallest, I will sue them for false advertisement. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, so like I said specifically, there's also other stuff that I know there's like one or two stories that I can't say or so specifically because it kind of goes a little bit in depth in the games that they're actually making, so I can't say anything of that sort of nature. But I could tell one of them at least specifically, which is my third friend. Who told me that, like, yeah, no, like some of these people are a little bit crazy to work with, or sort of the way how they do like the political talk, and then the way you have to do you have to basically tiptoe around them or so, because they're so fragile, I guess you can say, and whatnot. And they're like, you can't be like too harsh on them or whatnot. You have to be a people pleaser. Like, you basically have to please them at the end of the day. And it's just kind of like, that's interesting. But yeah. But then there's plus also, I think he told me specifically how the upper management, specifically the upper management and the people in the suits and everything are fucking retarded. They're actually straight up retarded. Like, no joke. They are. I've heard shit, but I cannot believe that some of these are. I never would expect it. I think like one of the best examples I can give or so, without like hinting too much, is. So, okay, so this is what I can say. Okay, so everybody knows what is it? Is it an onsen? No, it's not an onsen, right? It's a bathhouse. It's a bathhouse. It's a Japanese bathhouse, okay? All right. So I remember this specifically where one of my friends told me that like they were trying to come up with some level designs or so, right? They're kind of like making some kind of like Japanese inspired kind of video game type of thing or so. And of course, you know, everybody knows what a Japanese bathhouse is, right? I assume most of us do, right? We all know what it, like, basically what it is, right? I shit you not, apparently someone in the upper management area thought that like, you know, they were thinking like Japanese bathhouses, right? Were like English Western bathhouses. Like they wanted to create like the actual like Western style or so. The whole interior, the way how they take showers, they wanted to like have some weird shit with it, but it's not even a Japanese bathhouse at that point. It's like a Western bathhouse, but with like a Japanese like logo aesthetic face to it. And it's like that's not how it works apparently. Because it's supposed to be a Japanese inspired kind of type of theme in general, but they missed the mark by like miles away or so until they had to they had to get it verified or so if this was actually true and whatnot and everything. And it was like no, that's not how it works. And then once they got verified or so that's not how Japanese bathhouses are, they told them specifically how it works, and it's like, this is how it works, this is what it looks like. They had to bring in fucking photos for these dumbasses for them to see what a Japanese bathhouse is. So it's just kind of like, I'm just you can't not be fucking serious, to be honest. And then he was telling me, yes, that's literally how sometimes it works. Sometimes they sometimes get this like crazy ideal or so. Wait, they don't have Google? I have no idea. I have no fucking idea. Because he's literally like straight up, because he was like talking to somebody and he's like, that's not how the bathhouses work. And they were coming up with these crazy ideas for this Japanese bathhouse that made no fucking sense whatsoever, and it literally had nothing to do with Japanese, like anything Japanese related. And you're just like scratching your head, and you're just like wondering, these people are in higher up positions pitching in ideas that they have no fucking idea what they're even talking about at this point. And that's basically pretty much it. It's been a while since I talked to him because he's been busy with like other stuff in general. But yeah, that's like one of the things in general that like when they were coming up with ideas and brainstorming and stuff like that, I don't know who these people are, what they think or so, but they think specifically like when they say Japanese inspired theme or so, it's like the most like barely scratching the fucking surface of like what makes Japanese. Like they never they literally never went to go experience the culture or literally went over there to like see it firsthand, like at all. Like seriously, straight up, they just kind of make this shit up as they go along for some apparent reason, you know. And it's just kind of like, huh. You know, you expected to make a Japanese inspired like onsen slash bathhouse type of thing. You know, you think you would look up pictures or so and look up things of how it's actually done and everything. And it's just, but they don't do that. No, they don't do that. Not a single bit. So like they were doing like Western style, like they were having like separate, separated, panels or window panels or whatever the fuck for like the showers or so. It's kind of like, okay, so hold on, let me see. Let me show you specifically. So like
Western style PFFFFFFT Western.
Yeah, so they wanted to make like this specifically, like this specifically in general. Like they wanted to make rows of this apparently. So they wanted to make like rows of this. It's kind of like the shower inmates like in jail or stuff like that. They wanted to make stuff like this where they have like the two little things, the shower, but then like they have separated with like some weird glass pane or something like that. They want to do it around the area or so. That's basically what they wanted to. Or it was something similar to this or so. And instead of it being like instead of it actually being like a Japanese inspired kind of type of thing or so. So that's basically is what it was. It was pretty fucking funny or so to see that. Oh yeah. Like kind of like this or so, like something like this specifically. and then it was just, and then like it was just like, of course they got verified or so by somebody, and someone they told them off or so that that's not how it's done and that's not how it is. And that's basically is what it was. That I'm telling you, man, that's why I'm like a little bit 50-50 on the whole situation itself, where like I'm questioning some people's like like of like how certain things are behind the scenes when it comes to that. But overall, yeah, I still do blame the higher ups though. But there are some questionable like low level devs or so where I'm just kind of like, why are you here? Kind of type of thing, you know? So yeah, that's kind of like basically it. I just wanted to talk about this specifically, but that's all it is to it. Of course, the Japanese also needs a sushi conveyor belt. Right. There's gonna be like a sushi conveyor belt on the front part or so, and they grab sushi while they're taking a shower. Yes. That's what that's what they're doing. It's like the simplest of Japanese culture. It's like super simple. It's like not even Japanese, it's just Asian culture. It's like the simplest of simplest things. They don't even do the due diligence of the research for that, you know? Yeah, it was pretty much like a European bathhouse, like basically is what they were doing. If that's like the best reference I have to say. It wasn't even a Japanese bathhouse in overall, so. And that's kind of basically it. It was a pretty funny story though. It was a very, very, very funny story to hear. And I was just kind of like, wow, so that's literally what happens behind the scenes, huh? And then he was like, yeah, that's how it is sometimes, you know. It's pretty fucking funny, I'll be honest with you. I was like, I bet there's some other crazy wacky stories behind the scenes. Like he has a bunch of other crazy wacky stories in the video game scene or so, which is kind of fucking funny. I can't share the other two because it goes pretty discreet detail on the thing that they're making or so. And that's kind of like basically it though. So that's it though. But yeah, anyways, that's the end of the video. That's what I'm saying. Like the higher ups are to blame for a lot of the stuff that they fuck up or so in the games, right? For the decision makings. But you also have to question some developers behind the scenes or so, at least the lower class level behind. You got to question some of them or so what they're doing, you know. So that's kind of like basically it though. That's my personal opinion on it. So it's a little bit of 50-50. It's a bit of both that I blame both of them at the end of the day, but that's how it is though. But yeah, anyways, that's the end of the video. And yeah, it's a very interesting thing to be seeing behind the scenes of how video games are made.